I've been coaching for a long time now, and in my experience, over 90% of golfers get this wrong in the downswing. There's a good chance you're going to be one of these 90%, but we can change that because I'm going to show you some little tricks and tips in this video which have helped almost hundreds and thousands of my students strike the ball better. Delivery position is really when the golf club reaches level with the ground in the downswing. At this point here, good players, professionals, have everything in place where it's almost impossible for them to hit a bad shot. Everything's organised, so all they have to do is deliver the club to the ball and they get that sweet feeling compressed iron shot. Now, many of the golfers I coach, when they get to this part in their downswing, club level with the ground, when I look at that position, they've made it incredibly hard for themselves to make it good quality strike. And it's recovery mode, it's flipping the golf club, it's scooping, and good shots become really hard to get. So I'm going to make it really simple. I'm going to break this video into different sections. The first one, we need to be looking at what the legs are doing. Then we're looking at what the shoulders are doing. And then we're going to look at a little bit about your height and how that plays a really important role. And that's almost like the last piece of the puzzle to get you to strike it really, really well. So the first thing that I see as a big fault is what happens in the hips. Good players, as they transition from the backswing to the downswing, will move their hips towards the target. It's around about 6 inches when we look at the good players. But how they do that is really important. What I see lots of amateurs doing is trying to force that movement. And what they will very often do, as they get towards the top, they will thrust their hips forwards in this fashion. That actually pushes the upper body back. The lead hip gets too high too soon. And by trying to push their hips towards the target, maybe trying to get the weight onto that lead side, they actually get the opposite effect, with the weight actually shooting to the back foot because the head is falling backwards. What good players do is they keep their lead hip lower as they move forwards. So there's two really key parts to this move. Yes, the hips want to be moving towards the target, but we want to be keeping that lead hip lower. That means that your upper body can stay pretty much stacked on top of your lower body. That's the key move. So it's a movement towards the target, but it's a pressure into this lead leg. The last thing I want you to do is from the top, try and thrust those hips forwards, because all that happens, upper body gets tilted, body doesn't align, and it becomes very difficult to hit good shots. So here's what I'd love you to do. You'll see this little friend over here who's just been sat there in the background. You're going to put that through your belt loops. This is one of the best little exercises you can do. And do you know what? Start doing this at home, in front of a mirror or reflection. Take the golf club away because you're going to really see what your hips are doing. So you can see my hips are relatively level. As I make a backswing, lead hip is lower. As I transition, it stays lower. Now it doesn't stay lower all the way through, but the key part is as you're moving your pressure to your lead side, that hip is staying lower. That is one of the best moves that you can integrate into your golf swing to straight away level up your ball striking. If your lower body works really well, there's a good chance that things above it will work well. So lower body, get yourself an alignment stick. That's one of the best drills that you can do. Now the second issue, and this is something, we can almost say this is concept, maybe not quite as well understood as it should be, is how the lead shoulder moves. It would make sense that the downswing is just a reverse of the backswing. Okay, we start here, we move the club back, and the downswing is a reverse of that. If you do that, you're never going to hit the ball solid. Let me explain what happens. If we look at the lead shoulder, I'm going to use the end of my grip here as a reference. It moves down towards the ball and back behind the ball if we turn enough. In our downswing, it does not do the opposite. However, many golfers, probably 90% plus, it does do the same. It's got the same movement on the way down as it has going back. Now, if you're that golfer who thrusts your hips, it's actually going to be something like this, where the lead shoulder pops up too high. What we see with great players, I'm going to exaggerate this again for the purpose of this video, is the lead shoulder will move in this fashion here, and then as they transition, it goes lower towards the target before it starts to come upwards. It is not the same movement down as it was back. Now I'm going to give you a little visual. This is going to sound a bit crazy, but I'd love you to try this. It's just going to straight away get you to feel what good players do. So it's going to be a bit of a strange analogy, but bear with me. Take your golf club across your shoulders. Imagine that this is a shovel, not a grip, it's a shovel. Okay, and as you go back, just below the end of your shovel is some ground, some earth, some soil. And what you've got to do, you've got to throw it over your lead shoulder. But I'm going to get some on my shovel first. So it's no good making this movement because the shovel never went into the soil. So I have to go, wind it up, pick up the dirt over my shoulder. Back, pick up the dirt over my shoulder. And just look as I do that, what is happening to my lead hip. Pick up the dirt over the shoulder. Is my lead hip going this way? No, because look how my lower body and my shoulders are connected. If my legs do the wrong thing, it is almost impossible for my shoulders to do the right thing. So lead hip stays low, pick up the soil, throw it over my shoulder. That is such a brilliant concept because it straight away gets you to do what so many of the good players do. Move pressure, keep the left hip low, move the shoulder in the right direction. Now before we move on to the last thing, I'm just going to hit a shot, trying to put those things into action. And because I do those two things, it should pretty much guarantee me a solid strike. And I would not have that one back. That's only a 6 iron. But you see, attack angle is a minus. That's what I need. That gives me that downward stroke. So the final thing that so many golfers get wrong is they don't change their levels. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look at the top of my head, just put a line at the top of my head. What we'll very often see with poorer golfers is as they transition from backswing to downswing, they will start to push up and get taller than they were at setup. Now what that means is if you're getting further away from the golf ball, you have got to try and get that golf club head as far away from you as possible to even reach the golf ball. So how do I get that golf club as far away from me as possible? Well, when I get to the golf ball, I have to make sure that I'm in this position because that golf club could not be any further from me. So it promotes this early release, this scooping motion that so many of you are going to be familiar with. Have a look at great players. They do the opposite. They will often get lower in transition. Now, as I make this super exaggerated, I appreciate this won't look right, but if I was to make it super exaggerated, how do I make sure that I don't hit the ground? Well, I have the handle forwards. Because when I have the handle forwards, it shortens the distance between myself and the golf club. So losing a little bit of height promotes handle forward. Gaining height promotes handle in line or handle back. It promotes early release. So as the golfer pushes up, the club gets released. And because they're pushing up, they can't rotate, they get stuck, they get that early extension. And I'm sure you've seen golfers who have this kind of look through impact where there's no rotation and they're stalling out. So what I'd love you to do is think about points 1 and 2, which was hip and shoulder. And as you do those two movements, allow yourself to just get a little closer to the ground. You don't have to have any more thoughts, but just watch how lead hip low, lead shoulder movement, how those things cause me to get a little closer to the ground. Now I'm able to get into the delivery position like the best players in the world do, compress the golf ball like the best players in the world do, flight the ball like the best players in the world do, and be as consistent as the best players in the world do. I don't want you to be halfway into your downswing and already have zero chance of hitting good shots. I want you to be halfway into your downswing with your lead hip low, your lead shoulder low, your head have slightly dropped, and trust me, from there, it's actually quite difficult to hit bad golf shots. So, rehearse it, hip low, shoulder low, head down.